Part 3. The Serpent Unmasked. The death of Tapan Das transformed the investigation. It was no longer a personal attack on the Dwarkanath family, but a systematic purge. Aditya and Leela, working from the names in Anjali's prophetic poems and the list of her father's old associates, began to construct a timeline of ruin. They were not just solving a crime, they were excavating the buried sins of a generation. The sin of 85 inches was their starting point. Aditya, using his father's legal archives, unearthed the full story of the fall of the House of Sen. It was a tale of corporate savagery. Seth Dwarkanath, Tapan Das's father, and 2 other merchants had formed a cabal, systematically destroying the Sen family's business through sabotage, rumor, and financial warfare. The patriarch, Devendra Sen, had lost everything. The official record stated he had died of a heart attack, but rumor, as it often did, whispered of suicide. He had left behind a wife and a young son. The son, Aditya said, his finger tracing the name on a dusty legal document. His name was Arindam Sen. He would be in his early 30s now. He is the ghost, Leela. He has to be. The search for Arindam Sen became their obsession. But the trail was cold, a ghost from a past no one wanted to remember. The family had disappeared from Calcutta society after their ruin. There were no records, no forwarding addresses. It was as if they had been erased. Meanwhile, Leela made a breakthrough of her own. She spent days rereading her mother's dark poems, no longer as verses, but as a coded ledger of her father's life. She found another one referencing a different partner. The doctor's trust, a sacred oath, a balm for greed to soothe them both. But memory, a bitter pill, is poison that he carries still. A doctor, she told Aditya during their next clandestine meeting. The poem speaks of a doctor's betrayal. Was there a physician involved in their business? Aditya cross-referenced the names of the partners in the 85 takeover. None were doctors. The clues seemed to lead nowhere. They were frustrated, racing against time, terrified of who the serpent would target next. The 2 remaining members of the original cabal were now living in fear, surrounded by guards. The turning point came not from a clue, but from a moment of crisis. Seth Dwarkanath took a turn for the worse. His breathing became shallow, his fever spiked. Dr. Basu was a constant, calming presence. Spending hours at the Seth's bedside, adjusting his medicines, his gentle hands a source of comfort to the terrified Leela. That evening, as Dr. Basu was preparing an injection, he spoke to Leela in his soft, reassuring voice. Your father is a fighter, my child. He has a strong constitution. But the battles of our youth often leave deep scars. We must simply do our best to soothe them. Aditya, who had arrived to check on them, overheard the remark. He froze. The words echoed in his mind, colliding with the verse Leela had shown him. A balm for greed, to soothe them both. A doctor's words. Memory, a bitter pill. Poison that he carries still. A suspicion, so monstrous, so unthinkable, began to dawn in his mind. Dr. Basu, the man who had been their rock, their savior. The man who had identified the poison. The man who held her father's life in his hands. He excused himself, his mind a maelstrom. He raced to his father's study and began a frantic, desperate search, not through business records, but through old medical college registries. It took him hours, his hands stained with ink and dust, and then he found it. The student registry from 30 years ago. There, listed among the graduates, was a young man with a brilliant record. His name was Arindam Basu. But a small, almost unreadable note in the margin listed his birth name, changed years earlier to distance himself from a family disgrace. Arindam Sen. The serpent was not just at the gate. He had been inside the house all along. Aditya felt a cold dread unlike any he had ever known. He sprinted back to the Dwarkanath Haveli, his heart pounding with terror. He burst into the sick room. Dr. Basu, Arindam Sen, was standing by the Seth's bed, a fresh syringe in his hand, his needle glinting in the lamplight. He was about to administer the medicine. "Stop!" Aditya yelled, his voice cracking. Leela looked up, startled. Dr. Basu turned, his calm facade not cracking, but evaporating, revealing something cold and hard beneath. There was no surprise in his eyes, only a quiet, weary finality. "So," the doctor said, his voice no longer gentle, but imbued with the chilling weight of a 20-year vendetta. "The boy detective has finally solved the puzzle." "Arindam Sen," Aditya breathed, placing himself between the doctor and Leela. The confession that followed was not a scream of rage, but a low, chilling monologue of patient, calculated revenge. He told them how he had watched his father die, how he had changed his name, and how he had meticulously planned his life to place himself at the very center of his enemies' worlds. He had become their most trusted confidant, their healer, all while waiting for the perfect moment to become their executioner. "This is not murder," he said, his eyes burning with a cold fire. "It is justice. A balm for the greed that destroyed my family. I did not just want them dead. I wanted them to know fear. I wanted them to see the serpent in their own house before it struck the final blow." The syringe in his hand contained the fatal dose, the one meant to finish the job. The confrontation was tense, a battle of wills, not of fists. Leela, her initial terror replaced by a steely resolve, began to recite her mother's poem, the one about the doctor's oath. Her voice filled the room, a ghostly echo of a guilt he could not escape. The sound of his own hypocrisy, channeled through the daughter of the man he hated most, seemed to break him. The syringe slipped from his fingers, shattering on the floor as the guards, alerted by Aditya's shout, rushed into the room. Part 4. The Unwritten Chapter. The arrest of Dr. Arindam Sen sent a shockwave through Calcutta, a cautionary tale whispered in every drawing room. In the aftermath, a quiet, profound change settled over the Dwarkanath Haveli. Seth Dwarkanath began his slow recovery, the ordeal having stripped him of his arrogance, leaving behind a humbled, reflective man. One evening, a week later, he summoned Aditya to his study. Leela stood by his chair. The Seth looked at Aditya, his gaze clear and steady. "You saved my life," he said, his voice raspy but firm. "But you did more than that. You uncovered a truth I had buried for decades. You showed more loyalty to my family than men I had known my entire life. I have been a fool. I valued ledgers and profits, and I was blind to the true treasures in my own house." His eyes shifted to Leela, his expression softening with a deep, sorrowful love. "Her mother tried to tell me, and now you have shown me." He looked back at Aditya. "I misjudged you. You are not a boy playing at games. You are a man of honor and brilliance. My daughter's happiness is the only asset I have left that truly matters. I see the way you look at each other. You have my blessing. Do not make the mistake I did. Build your life on a foundation of truth and love, not secrets and ambition." Later that night, the air was cool and fragrant with the scent of night-blooming jasmine. Aditya and Leela sat on the veranda, the ivory chessboard gleaming between them in the soft moonlight. The pieces were set, but for the first time, neither of them made a move. Aditya reached across the board, his hand covering hers. The polished wood felt cool beneath their skin. "Leela," he began, his voice quiet, sincere. "I have spent my life trying to solve puzzles, to bring order to chaos. But the truth is, my world was never truly in order until you entered it. We have faced down scandal and whispers, conspiracies and poison. We have seen the very best and the very worst of this city, and we have done it together. He looked into her honey-colored eyes, the same eyes that had challenged and charmed him from their very first meeting. I am a man of logic. I deal in evidence. And all the evidence of my heart points to a single, irrefutable conclusion. I love you. I cannot imagine attempting to solve the great, wonderful mystery of life with anyone else by my side. Will you, Leela Dworkanath, be my partner in all the cases to come? Leela's heart felt too big for her chest. Tears welled in her eyes, not of sorrow, but of a profound, luminous joy. She answered him not with a grand declaration, but with the simple, poetic truth that was the essence of her soul. Yes, she whispered. My detective. My love. Yes. He gently took her hand and brought it to his lips. The game on the board between them was forgotten. For their own story, the greatest and most beautiful story of all, was only just beginning. And they knew, with the quiet confidence of a perfectly solved case, that it would be a masterpiece,